I used to believe that love never disappears suddenly. It fades quietly, like a sound slowly turning into silence. My husband, Ion, and I had been married for 7 years. From the outside, our life looked stable. We had a home, shared responsibilities, and polite smiles in front of others. But inside our walls, something had changed. He no longer talked to me the way he once did. Every morning, he left early, returning late with tired eyes and short answers. When I asked about his day, he replied with one word. When I tried to share my feelings, he listened without really hearing. Our conversations became practical: bills, groceries, schedules. Love was missing, yet no argument explained its absence. At night, he stayed on his phone longer than usual. He smiled at messages but never at me. I noticed how he guarded his screen, how he turned away when typing. I didn't accuse him. I was afraid of the truth and even more afraid of being called suspicious. So, I stayed quiet. Loneliness inside marriage feels heavier than loneliness alone. I sat beside him, yet felt invisible. I questioned myself constantly. Was I not interesting enough? Was I too emotional? Had I failed as a wife? The silence gave me no answers, only doubts. One evening, I asked him gently, "Did I do something wrong?" He looked surprised, then annoyed. "Why do you always overthink?" he said. That sentence hurt more than anger would have. It told me my pain was inconvenient. That night, I cried quietly so he wouldn't hear. I realized something painful: he was emotionally present somewhere else, even if physically he was still here. Emotional infidelity doesn't always involve touch. Sometimes, it begins with attention given to someone else and taken away from the person who needs it most. And so, the distance between us grew, not through fights, but through silence. The truth didn't come to me through a confession. It arrived quietly, the way heartbreak often does. One afternoon, Ion left his phone on the table. A message notification appeared with a name I didn't recognize. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The smile on his face when he later read it told me everything. He had found someone who listened to him, someone who laughed at his words, someone who made him feel understood. And in the process, he had stopped trying to understand me. I felt replaced, not as a wife, but as a companion. That realization was devastating. Emotional infidelity is cruel because it steals what cannot be proven easily. There were no visible scars, no clear evidence, only a growing emptiness. When I tried to talk to him again, he became defensive. "You're imagining things," he said. That sentence broke something inside me. I wasn't imagining the loneliness. I was living it. I stopped sharing my feelings after that. I stopped expecting him to notice my silence. I withdrew, hoping he would realize my absence emotionally. But he didn't. He was already gone in ways that mattered. Friends noticed I had changed. Family told me to be patient. "Men are like this," they said. Their words made me feel more alone. My pain felt invalid, unseen, and unimportant. There were nights I stared at the ceiling, wondering how two people could drift so far apart while living under the same roof. I realized that betrayal doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it whispers until your heart learns to live with disappointment. That was when I understood a painful truth. In my marriage, I was emotionally alone. During the hardest days, only one person stayed with me: my mother. She didn't ask many questions. She didn't blame me or defend him. She simply listened. When I visited her, she noticed my silence immediately. Mothers recognize pain without words. I finally allowed myself to cry openly. For the first time in months, I felt heard. She told me something I will never forget: emotional neglect is also a form of betrayal. Her words gave my pain a name. I wasn't weak. I wasn't overthinking. I was hurting for a real reason. She reminded me of my worth when I had forgotten it. She told me that love should feel safe, not lonely. With her support, I slowly began to rebuild myself. Not my marriage, my self-respect. I stopped waiting for Ion to change. I stopped measuring my value by his attention. I focused on healing, on understanding that someone else's emotional absence was not my failure. The more I healed, the clearer everything became. I saw how much I had sacrificed to keep peace. I saw how often I had silenced myself to avoid conflict. And I saw how alone I had been, even when married. The one person who stayed with me didn't promise solutions. She offered strength. Sometimes, that is enough. I never confronted Ion dramatically. I didn't need to. The distance between us had already said everything. One day, I told him calmly that I needed space. He looked shocked, not because he cared deeply, but because he hadn't expected me to choose myself. That moment was powerful. For the first time, I wasn't begging for attention. I was protecting my peace. I learned that emotional infidelity teaches harsh lessons. It shows you who values you and who takes you for granted. It reveals who stays when things are difficult and who escapes emotionally. Only one person stayed with me, but that was enough to remind me that I deserved better. Healing didn't come overnight, but it came with clarity. Today, I am stronger. Not because I was loved perfectly, but because I survived being unloved silently. I learned that loneliness is not cured by company, but by connection, and connection must be mutual. Sometimes, losing someone emotionally helps you find yourself completely.